다들인데 그 유머는 팀 숨주배 가져다지 숨주에기 수르도 채하고 다딘 제림들이 고르 주요하래 남규임이나 그 유머는 맞춰 공라 그 숨주를 지게 하래 달로양 뒤주 다 가지고 답디민 게 왕기 뭐는 게 제일 숨주차 느리지기 본교하지 심베제 드린 유자다 드린데 순수 성마를 받다지 에디 녜든 드메기 순수를 차례 디토리아 페베 겹지 넘버 다음 주베고 넘버 다음 다나시 캠보기에 신년 넘버 다음 엔덴 주베지 긴둥이 돼 다나시 치게 계급 강선의 페베 텐데바 참으로래 양의 통말 참지 주시들 쉬어요.
So we are doing this teaching connected with the 30th Kaju Malam. Usually we do these teachings before the Malam, but because of some convenience, this time we are doing this at the end of the Malam. And so we are going to teach the torch of certainty, and to this the subject number, the two subjects, and many tulkus, tempos, and all the Sangha members who have come from various places, and also many people, devotees, come from all over the world. To begin with, I would like to extend my greetings to all of you.
다리데 녜든 드메데 다리 그 말에 그주 몰람기 팀 섬으로 주시르디 장고 공주 짐준이야 이 제전수야 처여빈 유산에 다리 그 순주에 대인이냐 장고 공주 당불로드 타에긴 제샤베 녜든 드메기 차생 녜든 드메티 이거네
And the reason why we chose to go through the torch of certainty, the Mahamudra torch of certainty, is because the theme of this Kaju Melam is to remember the Jamgon Kontrul. And because this text is composed by the Jamgon Kontrul Lotu Thai, therefore we chose to go through this particular text.
다이네요. 가상우마다 디스찬 당고 원다 디지 갈레르 칸 수부를 마데르 슈르 자메딩 단 선이의 순주를 채도서 말해서서 내 총송 제선 당고 옆지 계절을 붙일래야 다 선인가라 쇼베 순주를 제모도나 준비체게 가셔다지 저 차기 생기 문주기 도하는마 지도연럽지 overall view som말다 데르지마 서로 지스티니 슈아르지 슈비 다나 샤벨라인드 오즈르도 드레인주산 아니 양지 데 미망위의 인사 아주 용가체비 다이미니 이 슈르지다 매베스도 제상 슈지라민도라 다나 저지디 소시라자 저리고라 처럼 총마송 가산 ene kora diringi ko samlo kora zan tang me kasan shi tuwa che musan enda di antarji ke me che ani shu shi da me subur shu shi da me musan da ya wor che de sam changmin do de mi ne ya da kantu do shu yin
Yesterday evening, I was quite tired, and also I was not feeling well. And I was not sure whether I will be able to do the teachings this morning. And so therefore I actually asked Sabje Japsa Rinpoche that if I am not able to do this teaching tomorrow morning, can you please give an overall teaching on this particular text. But this morning I feel better, but I still have no strength in my body, and so therefore yesterday I couldn't do any preparation. I couldn't even think about what I'm going to do this morning, and so therefore I have no preparation, and also because I have not much strength, I'm not in the best condition, but still, because there are so many people gathered here, I came and I will try my best.
다다리 차생 예든 주메디 담보 치시 고란에 차장지 시야 쳐시게요 말에 그제 잠주다 도심디 조디 티인디 프리리미너리 서머베 온주 티지 이미 인장 다 조디 주시 조르디 데 잠주 도심 멘제 라멘에 주디 스윙브레 디난다 잠주다 도심디 차나서 말지 다대 저거 유메 대좀지래 다 양배 대화를 제시 마 이길로 샤서 차비나 이라 벤도스케 마스케 기마레 가서 차르도 그렇지 잠주 도심 네가 차나를 대들 맞주나 아니 잠주를 사나 삼바를 두스정이요.
Actually, when we go through this, the torch of certainty at this time, I did not really plan to go through the whole text this time. And I thought that if possible, I would go through the refuge and Vajrasattva, although this refuge, the main teachings of these preliminary practices of Mahamudra are refuge, Vajrasattva practice, mandala offering, and Guru Yoga. So therefore, even if I cannot finish all of them, and I think that it is not much use if I just rush through them, because then it would not really benefit. So therefore, I will try to go through the refuge and Vajrasattva. But even if that doesn't happen, if we finish refuge this time, that I think would also be okay.
Tene angkata ji melam kalia malugi dorsimge jenan chebre shezan ji dosisamba yamle chingerago tindelia ya kashurada 나바르도 지금 거주기지 온주 냠내 칭게로 여비나 대줄이야야 지 멀루기 도스는 거 와로 스토비미나 근데 지 표좀 처베 연나로 처음에로 삼 데레르 쳬브레 제장 장주 마체레디 토 유지레 가셀라 아직 사도 조바 인자 토 유기 말에 다 간다야 들이 쳬사레 다 대야지
So, if you want to do this particular practice, then one thing that is necessary to go with it is this the empowerment of Vajrasattva. And during the Kagyu Melam this time, I did this empowerment of Vajrasattva coming from the lineage of Marpa. So therefore, this is a kind of a complete auspicious coincidence that it happened. And now, if you want to practice this particular Ngundu from Kagyu tradition, then you have all the necessary teachings and empowerments.
Tene 다 가르쳐주다. 다 가장 장군 군주 대제대로 그렇지 무시르디 니마 당 무시디 이래. 건다 진짜 다 군지 시바 초안에 막 가서 송주로 송주에 나가래 제상 나란디 수대지 녀하게 비게지 수도 년배 개와상으로 총송 야부샤 총송 아들이 인도상 나라인에 가수라다지 달로 되버려 있어머베 타 지당기 다가리네 개왕우마 가르지 레르스 가르사비네 징에 센딜이야 다 바르제에서 바르제에서는 라도지 미디움 비갱에서는 라도 마버르 시원이 야래 인도산에 삼섬 따따 땜바던 로에트 그거저 조유나 섬으로지 응게다 레니 왕 땜바던 로에트 간지 조유나 섬으로데 티좀으로지 영원히도 다 이미네 다 림보치도 데게다지 가수로다 지 기부 탐바 어디지 안출이야 예베 댄체 다 소소네 로데버지 다 그지 안 디저에 섬으로지 데르지 태송.
So yesterday, the main ceremony of the remembrance of Jamgon Kontul Lotutai was very well and very satisfactorily completed. And also the fourth Jamgon Kontul Rinpoche gave his teachings. And I'm very satisfied and very happy because due to some karmic conditions, in my activities, usually there's sometimes obstacles or some kind of difficulties always arise. And so therefore, I always have this doubt that whether this kind of great activities, which would be of great benefit for the peoples and for the teachings, might not go in the exact way that I wish it. So therefore, I'm very happy that things went very, very well, and especially that we have such a great master, bright Jamgon Kontul with us, and so therefore, you know, we are very fortunate that such a thing is happening.
다드네 나 간데지 고조이나 고조다는지 신민도 당공 제가 단데 주산에 구유르지 거지 다다 리자송 삼 텐송 다 이네 다 드레 구유코알레 도다 지렌지렌스 게임도 다제 예리야 지당 최체단도지 지용부자는 베이직 섬으로 최체단도지 맞지 시에잖아 되니 걸리지 그런 차비티 토나 디 예든 드미 토나 마 친체 지 슈비네 야면도.
So how to start? I'm not very sure how to start because yesterday when I was giving the audience, I felt a little giddy and I thought I would fall down. Today there is nothing like that, but I'm little kind of not so clear. I think the best way is to first give you some indications on how to practice Dharma as a kind of a starting point, and then we go to the text and step by step go through the text. I think that would be more useful.
但确起居的谢物，确起居谢于啥呢？아니 한 강해지요. 그랬잖아. 배 최니 배 가르 최배 최니 지신도 송배 지 최지주도谢为나니 한고 대지야지 최바 강가로 버지 팅상가 지 최바 강가로 버지 최መ인버를 차로로 체 대년가를 지도 야 최머인버지 되네배 去印度考去写下呢，这样去的中国嘛吧？这是干嘞样的，这因为呢，大高考出来就送人呢写呗，就去七路的嘛就写下呢，俺个就说属于的花儿去，乱去，偏到用过的程度。
So, to talk about how to practice Dharma, there is a problem. Because if you really go through exactly how it is mentioned in the teachings, how to practice Dharma, then it kind of seems as if most of the people who are supposed to be practicing Dharma are not really practicing Dharma. So therefore, it's not so nice to talk about that. But then if we talk something lighter and something different, not really Dharma, then also this is not according to the Dharma, and so therefore it's not good. So therefore there is a little bit problem talking about how to practice Dharma. But anyway, I'll go through the teachings of the Buddha on how in the text or in the original scriptures how to practice Dharma, and then maybe you can study that or you can listen to that and then see how you can do yourself.
他刚才劝你送下的所说的，就女婿、八岁、九岁切想这个的，这里那个就切过来是个么的，上个准备的个。 别人对那个来，住民女被结巴塞的，结巴的嘞，所以咱住民女把这三个嘛切过来是，送过嘛来是，刚才啥呢？三个可能，人这边等你一位印度啥呢？这住民女被结巴这个嘛来是，这当然是嘞，所以女尊就切下了，别劝你写不怎么记性，别加是加汤吧，个那个不下来，这可立个嘞就是切过来就切下，但这当的长么切的记住了吧？ 现在记住来的因为呢，可理个哩，别去看出来，人别心都恐怕唐不你别记清楚的嘛，对不对？你们唐不呢？恐怕唐不呢，长么些些是就要吧？这样就说是女尊女尊，其他的，其他的，这里就是啥？pressure 啊，他这俺被全部影响嘛的，你也知道把都看全面都全写不能行，假设家长把人们都上不了的，俺就什么了，什么时候查了？
So what I mean to say is this, that when we go through the scriptures, the description of what Dharma practice is or how to practice Dharma, that's the kind of ideal thing on how to practice Dharma. But then what we have to do is we have to practice it as much as we can from there. We don't have to make it 100% perfect. Because it doesn't mean to say that we should not practice all of them, but we should go step by step as much as we can in the circumstances that we are in at the moment. Even about the Vinaya, Buddha told that these are the rules, this is how you should do, but then you do as according to your capacities and abilities right now. There is no pressure. One should not feel pressurized, or one should not feel that I have not been able to do exactly the 100% right, so therefore I should feel bad, or I should feel discouraged, or there is nothing necessary to do like that. So therefore, we need to understand what are the ideals practice of Dharma, and then we should practice it as according to the level we are in and that we are able to do at this point, step by step and slowly and without too much pressure. That's the way we should go about practicing the Dharma.
다이네 준주 빠져 사대야 가셔기 준주 빠져 되라 카단 강강 미제 내려와 가야 냠냠 미제 네 도움도 당번에 유샤 다이네 준주 빠져 사 도움도 따네 제 못투나 된 유샤를 된지리 준주 빠져 서거 마도베 양게 당번에 가서 준거 말해서 봐 타제네 최다고랑 맞제네 봐 타제네 유샤바텔라 맞은 주제 받을 수 있게 말해서 아 당분 중국도 없다고 최다체 따줄 때는 중국 민도 받지 가 학원에 배 가서 왜 니주 토리아 올라래 땅에 재미도 받지 라트 중네 되네 봐 유샤나 내버스게요 말해서 건 저거를 다들 인도스탄에 최치란들이야 아이디어로 직체 reality somewhere ideas bisa 고아로 지체 최지루 재단이 생고로와 다당원수 제모도나 지루 재단이 고아로 되다 령고래 고아디 초지체 아니 라랜디 무슨 냠내 차 무슨 라랜 차디 양고 초지르지 제장 고아 능신 수수 셈리여 능신지 가지게 담바 남사체도 말하되 예민이야 지 고아로 지루 재단으로 생고로와 디시에베 토네 우유니주 토래야 간투투바 주주 빠져 냠는 차래 제장 고아대에 버체 주주 빠져 우유니주 토래야 주주 빠져 냠는 차 니부디 니가 고래.
So when we say that we should do as much as we can or according to our capacity or ability at this time, again we should not understand it like right from the beginning I say, I cannot do that, and we don't do anything because we already decide right from the beginning that I cannot do it and I will not be able to do it. That way, then we will never do anything. So therefore, that doesn't mean that. So we should not think like that. We should try. We should try to practice as much as possible. And then, in reality, if we find that it's not possible, we cannot actually do those things. If we really find that out after trying, then we should say, okay, we don't need to do this at the moment because I'm not capable of doing this, and we should not feel bad about that. That's what I mean to say. But then therefore, it is very important to understand, the full kind of ideal practice. What are the ideal practice? What are the real complete practice is about? And then we have to know that, and we have to try to do as much as possible, and then also looking at the reality in our situation, and then see how much we can do out of that we should do that. So therefore, these two things are very important. To have an understanding of the ideal practice of Dharma, how to do that, and then to adjust ourselves to the reality of our life, and then practice as according to our capacities and our abilities at this moment. So these two things has to be very clear.
다 될래야 딩상배 최체 스비자냐 미망고지기 가르치는 것이나 어지 차 망보피야 꼬람 망보사야 다나시 숭아 망보자야 된다나시 내 자침부들 친지 내고치야 디줄리 에다 가수에 그 개심을 지체 디줄베 시우지 가수에 준주 작업을 체제 이는 게 최체가 인스네 아니 수수의 된대체 미신달라 최체 니데체고 그랬어 최치두산에 어떤 니데체고 그랬어 봐 미신달래 무슨 거를 시리가 그랬어 다디 된대기 다 최체하디 최체가 레 최체가 레 당연히
So, many people these days think that to practice Dharma is making lots of prostrations, reciting lots of mantras, making many circumambulations, visiting sacred places and go on pilgrimage, and all these kind of things. They regard as the most important practice of Dharma. And not only that, they think themselves as the true most important practice of Dharma, but they also tell other people that if you want to practice Dharma, you have to do this, like that. So this is something that is very, kind of
common.
All spread out these days.
다들 최체하지 레슨 최체하지 레스
So if you ask whether this is practice of Dharma or not, then it's true. That is practice of Dharma.
나 최남다지 레스나 다디 티좀르시
But if you ask whether that's pure practice of Dharma or real practice of Dharma, then it can be or it cannot be. There is a doubt.
다원은 미카시지 들려러 다 디티좀이 인디에나 군조를 대바샤네 차담베 꼬라 드는 가든 라서바 제아데드니 최마르베스 에네디 디제 최체는 pen 요 마르베스 집이미나.
So then if you ask, if you do these things like prostrations and recitations and these things, is it not Dharma practice? And if you do this kind of Dharma practices, is there no benefit? If you ask this kind of questions,
다디 군조를 대바샤네 차도 꼬라라서 제아디 최미스 자원을 러고요 말에 디레체벌 펜유메스 자원을 러고요 말에 이나야 내가도 가와토여서나 딘제게 차도 꼬라 제아디 군조를 대바샤네 차도 꼬라 제벌에 당 군조를 대바마샤네 차도 꼬라 제벌에스 다디 두와디 소소소를 주 소소소를 다 두와데 랭고.
now when you say that with my faith and devotion to the triple gem, to the Kunchoksum, I make the prostrations and all these things, then is it Dharma practice or not, or is it? So there, we are not saying that's not Dharma practice. It's not, or there is no, whether there's, what doubt is there now? Now that, the question is, when I do these things, is it because I have a complete devotion to the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, and then doing that, or do I not have that kind of devotion or trust? That is something we need to ask ourselves.
다디 주와들려는 남산 랭겨래 다디다 군조 대바샤는 인데이스다. 라구로와 다 임비네 다 칸에 해야 돼 레라 버와 이나야 되나 바지지 칸에 시아는 신지 갈아 가버라 데 갈아 가버 임발 균세요
And of course, people will say, of course I have full devotion and trust in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. They will say that, and it is easy to say that, and maybe you actually believe that. But if you really try to understand whether it's really true, what kind of trust and devotion I have, then it's difficult. We have to look at it more deeply.
다디 칸에 시아는 신 레 라바치 메베 균생 가르레사나 군주얼 대바체 사디 미좀 테모 자신 지리아 군주얼 대바치 쓰고 말았어.
The reason why it is difficult is this, that when you say, I have devotion to the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha, just closing your eyes and folding your hands at the heart is not devotion to the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha.
대바사디 닝 셈띵니 닝 타원의 계고
The devotion has to come from the depth of your heart.
다 된저베 닝 타원의 계와데 규메 계메는 다스 닝 타원의 계용고 말았어.
And to have that, devotion from the depth of the heart, it just doesn't come like that without causes and conditions.
다지 응응게 렌추여바 카시에레 마도 현 상황을 겨중기 제 개성을 천디 개 베나다 라마 게베 신예 지기 된 뒤네 다 가르에 상기기 람지 짐바 데 가르서 상기기 최 냠렌 체당 이게 당화 양타바지 니 데네 당화데 니네 에네 소수 강시시 파곰 냠레 제 진짜 제발라 되네 가르에 고개고야를 쳐야 하면서.
So, except for some very few people who have very strong karmic kind of causes and effects, for most of us people, this doesn't happen just like that. The devotion and trust doesn't happen just like that. We need to find a genuine master. We need to understand from him what the practice is all about, and then by actually using it on ourselves and practicing them, then we will slowly understand, the reasons why we should have devotion and trust. So this way, this devotion and trust has to develop.
다 돼야 당보지 가수에 원퇴 다 도스라는 저도 당보 가수에지 원퇴 공파 줍서 말বে 원퇴 공파 줍야 되네 탐지 니리 타바다 탐지 캠베 람주고요 알았어 제가 대니가 주톱디 너르듀비나 대바드 시럽 양타바지 소수규리야 깨주고요. 디나네 야 당부 대바드 개침데 다 대바드야 다스지 몽데 염죽 점아이마 현기 제수 주고 점아이마 다디 최래 민다베 템바 때부지고 개침 싶자래요.
So whether it is to attain the positive life situation of humans or higher level of worldly higher levels, or to to attain the enlightenment or the liberation from the samsaric state of being. For both of them, we need the understanding or the basis, a strong basis of devotion or trust or faith, as well as wisdom. These two things are very important. And out of that, the first thing is that devotion or the faith. And that faith or devotion has to come from a very clear understanding of otherwise this faith or the trust cannot happen without having a very clear understanding of because it doesn't develop unless we have a very clear understanding of the causes and effect.
Today in Yusane, that Tinjay, Tandona, Tambo, Tabat Gashim Yinsang, and Lama Tsini, the Debajiki, Tonlia, Dangwa Shushe, Dangwa de Susu Gulaba Jarni, Yamne Cheje, Daganda, Gunjo, the Lake Jundelia, Yicheve, Tabat Temboji, Gunzen get Tangbe, Gunzen Dang, and Danashi Nilu Shebe. Tabat tempoji kewale bezuchego are.
So therefore,
okay.
The first thing, it's important to get that devotion or the faith. And that, how to get it, is first to find a genuine teacher, a Lama, and then receive genuine teachings from this Lama, and with some understanding, with clear kind of clarity of mind, with good reasons to understand why there is the karmic consequences, the right causes and effects, and how that can then transform or change our way of being by practice or through practice. So when we have a very strong kind of understanding and experience of that, not just a kind of following or just blind faith, but the real understanding of confidence, clarity, then only we can have the true devotion or true faith.
That Teba that Teba Tig Shugi be Changche. Dang Susu be Cheshadi, Kari Tundala Chigidu, Kari Tundal Chigidu, Samatanche, Taji Chaures, Taji Chene, Susu Cheshadi, Kari Tundal Chigiyamdi, Taji Yawo Dan and Checha or Madobe, Taji be Zawane Matanga Che. Tenipa Karjuri be content of Cheshavina, the children do your mares. Karaja Chesade, Cheshi will Lagarche. The Pugan will Laga, Pugan will Cheshi will Lagajinza, they be consumer jewel with Cheshana, Denibera, and Dimachen and the day Yungumare, Di Chena, Di Yungure Sarvo, Tindiji, Kandar Be Kashwe, Jundegi, Judan Dribugi, that needs this over. Shidru, Taje Cheche, Taje or Madobe, Drigomar, but Tonesi, Tons Gabinia, Tambun Diche, Dijel and Diche, Dijel and Diche Sarboji, Takanda Kurimdang, Cheshire of Chazan Orba, Madobege, Dijen Dimingi, Samakanga Madaje, Patson Javiana, Tongayomar. Now, church had when a Pugan Cheshi will Lagatinza, Telebin Dijan Dimi, even summer Chazan of Givetone, Chagoramadaji, Chigujavina, Kawalegi, Kanga to that Chigi, Hago Mena, church in Romans.
So, therefore, we have to have this clarity and the certainty, and that certainty is talking about because Dharma practice is that we need to know why we do this Dhamma practice. What happens if we do this? Or what happens if we don't do this? It is a kind of a planned, long-term view. You know, what should I do? And after that, what should I do? And if I do this, what good things will happen? If I don't do this, what bad things will happen? You have to have a very clear understanding of causes and effects, the causality, because that understanding, when you have that very clear understanding of the causes and effects, then you have a very clear picture of if this needs to be done, because if I do this, then this thing will happen, and then if I do that, then it will be all good, or if I don't do this, or if I do this, then something bad will happen. And so therefore, when you have that very clear understanding and you have certainty, then the Dhamma practice happens. And this is like a long-term planned project. It's not very different from business, because when you do a business also, we just don't do something without thinking. We have to think, we have to plan, we have to see that if I do this, then this will happen. If I do this, then that will happen. So therefore, I will do this first, then that, and so therefore, you have a kind of a plan and you have an order. So in this way, when you do the practice of Dhamma, it's the similar. It's not something we just do because somebody tells you to do it or people are doing it, but you need to understand the causes, the effects, and then you have to be clear about all these things, and then it really becomes true Dhamma practice.
Now, 제가 현다 도도 디 가르스거랬으나 미신다게 제그데 니레스체 에네베 가르스에 미신다게 지세르 칸셀라 냠누고 봐 소수기 베 랑오랑시 랑타랑죄로 진지지게 토안에 딱 안다르베 소수기 녜셰베 닝는 동물을 시해지 진지지게 토안에 최샤디 최실로만 오르지 제마도베 미신다베 칸세세르지 진제 제스다 미망고치 두스 로디가 오르바 제상 다 디리 용머 쳐발 녜라 랑고랑되르 용머 쳐발 녜르 소수 하고 오르바 닐루 준세 하고 오르바 다 닐루 준세 하고 와서게 핑거 말에 다 진제 하고에 된다디 섬라 샤네 야네야 기튼달베 섬로 땅 따제 쳔네 다 간다량베 라메 숨으스므레 계획신이 마 숨바데 뢰이 냠바르비지 다 데데 근데 인데 뢰이 삼바르비지 근데지기 소수 섬리야 녜셰르비지 템보르비지 마용고 바투스바스 따제동 제고와레 근데기 딱 녜셰 템보사데 가르사나 에너지 미신다 당지 디 퍼블릭 섬으로 직된베기 가르스레 람다 루스에다 디즈기 지세르 칸세르부 진제기 제선 담무거 소수기 르니기 소수 르니기 딱 남주기 제라 데네 룽다르베 딱제 쳔네 고 냠린 디디지 쳔비나 윤딘 디디지 가 냠린 디디지 쳔비나 아니 데용고도 람 디디지 고바이미나 드는 가르소 디제 용고도 삼바르 딱 간다르 가르소 규단 지비 니즈르디 디 하고르지 딘디지기 다 가르소다 시럽세는 단도 니셰르 다 딘디지리아 아니 바지 니셰 템보사데 딱 간다르 템보사데 수수기 학원 차장 학원 미신다 진리시 제비 고철라 마철라지 미신다 제 조라데 마이베 수수 고자상으로 최제 난 좋아요 이마다.
So it's not just some people saying something and you have to follow. That's not the way. You know, some people must say, you have to do this, and then you have to do that. And then I say, okay, they say this, I have to do this, so I have to do this. It's not just following the others kind of what they say and what is tradition or what, not just that. It is something that I have to really find out that this is how it should be, and therefore this is how I would do. So you have the kind of your independent understanding and clarity, and therefore you have a certainty and you have to follow that path. This is very important. And for that to happen, you need to understand. If you don't understand, we cannot be independent, and we cannot independently decide what is the real or true Dharma practice. So therefore, we need to examine, we need to investigate. When we receive teachings from masters, we need to understand, we need to take in those teachings, and then we need to reflect on that. We need to investigate. We need to know why and how all these things, you know, why should we do this, why should we not do this, and understand very clearly. And when we have that understanding and clarity, then we are certain about the practice of Dharma. We just don't follow people's sayings or, you know, the popular trend or just the, you know, the tradition, but we know what is leading to what. And so therefore we have a very clear and unkind of changeable or completely, you know, reasonable clarity and certainty. And when that happens, then we can independently decide what is the true practice we need to do. So that kind of a clarity and certainty is the most important thing to find.
다 당기 저들이 야지 로비나 군저를 대바 유엔에 차도 거라 지유에단 대바 맨 차도 거라 지유스 다 들리지 저들 야 로비나 다 당기 니주 차자 시에자다 삼로 당조전 오다 교랑기 시에번는시 제비나 바지 유사 말에 사람들 다바지 용도 가버려 봐 당기지 남주 아주 유에스 카를 럽디 유에스가 아다 유에도 영알면에 술 유에스게 저러다 아주 배바랍지 믿는다고 충주인이 바바 아마 참은 나버래 나베 진짜다 알면에 술이 다 군절 대방 알면에 술이 나 나버면에 술 나버니 단도 주 주보자인가요 다 지단 드시디 차상 접서서 오다 저랑 시에번은 시잖아 이 깔래 가보 인사래 사마르지 사무 동조야 알아보시 물어봐 다 있네 군절에 대바 매네 제베 차도 그렇지 지기에 있나니 제베텔라 펜유 요르데 펜유 또지 요르스 다 루이게 와르 쳐로 또지 요르스 중세 저 이나야 숭럽지 주나네 숭베 지 차체베 펜유 꼬라게베 펜유 된다나시 디주 펜유 차상지 야자 짜담바 도구 말아 펜유 첨부지 가르스나 펜유 치중 사디 대바 치중 라레 대바 인상 대바 첨부 예비나 펜유 첨부 대바 중중 하다면 펜유 중중만 용거 만들었어 근데 인두산에 아주 디상 군절 대바 치사 셈 가보 예바 잠시 기본의 다 가서 군절의 가종종의 예비 인상 대래 대바스 된대질이야 뇌송네 다 대가랑 대바이 섬 된대지기 왜 이쯤 버르지 초바체네 대대 요르데 은혜 제비나 대바사한테 간대지래서나 대바사 된대지 셈 가보 좀 셈지 가르르데 당만의 지역에 뒤집어 평가 많았어 대바사한테 최대 유엔나 런규 최什么 최대 런규의 유엔나 랑로 최래 민도와지 된대지 누가 유된게 된신이 유된게 된대지기 로 된대지 구요 알아서 간다 대바사한테 최대 유 대바사한테 예비나 소수를 로함 셈디 최래 민도와 제통게 된대기 배 된신이 배 셈지 구요 알아서
So now if you return to the question that we asked in the beginning, do you practice this? Do you do that particular practice because you have true faith or devotion or not? Then you might say, if you say like that, then maybe, I don't know, maybe I don't have that complete faith. Then you might say this. Before that, if you just ask, especially Tibetan, you say, if you don't have faith in Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, he will say, well, why not? I, of course, completely have faith. And if you say, some people might even get angry that we question their faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. But that's not the idea. It is not. So therefore, when we have that certainty, the tepa in Tibetan can be of a little bit different translations or meanings. So that certainty, the tepa is not just liking. I like this, or I have some inspired by this. Not just that kind of a tepa, but the true kind of understanding and certainty. When we have that, when we have that tepa or that true certainty or devotion, then it so happens that I cannot not practice this. I cannot do anything else because this is what I really understand and this is what I should be. There is no other way. This is the right thing and this is the only thing, genuine thing. So therefore, the devotion or the tepa or the certainty means that it makes you, act, or it makes you feel in this way and there is no other way. It's completely certain that this is the only way or this is the way which really brings the right thing for me. So that kind of thing is what we call true tepa. So therefore, when you do these practices like prostration and things like that, without this kind of certainty, then I'm not saying that this has no effect. Of course it has some effects. It's a good thing to do. It's a Dharma practice in a way. But if you ask, does that have all the positive benefits that has been described in the teachings or scriptures, then you say no, it doesn't have all the benefits that has been described in the scriptures because the true practice of the prostration and all these things has to be as with complete faith or complete devotion and this certainty, and that we don't have. So therefore, this is something it's very important to understand.
다 드네 뉴사 텐저벽이 드는 배 가수야지 다 정규 최래 민다의 대방 정규 최래배 요르 민유배지 뉴바유행에 든제지기 대바지 개발 채발이야 이 대바디 왜 가수에다 봐 수수기 왜 냠낸 채배 봐 무슨 정규 최다 장 냠낸 채배 더블 개고 요르 마도배 디 가수에 개고 유장 다 대야 당보 라마 지대나 마도 라마 지대 당마지 년나 마도 연구 말해 마도 다 망부지기 나라서 최신의 망부지기 라마 댐 당마 년뭐 다 직차도 거라지 간도에는 제샤나 딘진적으로 지나 사디가래 다 딘데 첸티스 드거 말해 당기 공도 쉬변나 시들이 인주사 인지미지 라마지 당보 라마지 대 종내 당화를 지니 다기 당화 기두 간데네 케바스케요 말 당화 기두 간데네 당화 지니 타마디 소수기 바 닌다 센도 바디 소수기 니리기 미지나로래야 디베 최체스도상 바 수르도 추주 가셔질 제아르지 쇼베 칸데스도산에 쇼베 추주 가셔제 광다 칸데스 광다 추주 가셔제 엔데마인바디수지 가르쳐야지 최단 전매기 왜 자와르지 최단 개회 자와 경계하는 제 대할 진짜 뭐인바 수수기 니리기 미지 주주니슈 접시 나로래야 배 냠소 렌체 런규 두고 요아래 Tene di junzel tene inji miji karshwe karshwe da lama ten dangma shugwa de keshimare sha.
So therefore, the true Teba or the true devotion is this, that once you have that, because you have it so clear and so certain, that you cannot be anything else but with Dharma, or you cannot act in any other way but with Dharma. So when that kind of understanding or clarity happens, then you have a true faith, you have a true devotion. Therefore, in order to get there, in order to develop that, you need to practice, and through practice and study, you need to bring that. And therefore, you need to have a teacher, a genuine kind of a teacher, and you need to especially receive teaching from that teacher. Because without the teaching, then you cannot get that understanding or experience. That teaching or instruction can be a very elaborate one or a very short one. It doesn't matter the length of that instruction, but we need to get the instruction, and then we understand, and then we know that this is something, the way of life. The Dharma practice becomes a way of life, and we know that this way of life is the only way of life that is good for me. When that understanding happens, then Dharma practice doesn't become something that you do outside of your life, like a few minutes or a few hours in the morning and a few hours in the evening, and the rest of the day you don't do any Dharma practice. That kind of thing doesn't happen, because living your life in the right way is the practice of Dharma. So this understanding is very, very important.
Oh yeah. Chezang lama ma den dangwa ma shu tene dangwa la be thesam gong sung gi nyamle ma che bala so sui gi tabe loga somare che che be loga ra be tor be improve somare be daji loga de tor ro ya di kala kham share pajin ro ya mare lo member ti da tham je be lo che to ni che to la 동에게 다 맹아 삽슈디 다 간다라 가르슈에지 다 간다라 기부순게 남녀에 봤사는 라안도 다 간다 먹기베 텐저니야간에 송데 답에 신이 딘주이나 텐저니야간에 이나 드네바 냠내 최고 알아보지 디베 로 체도로 보통알 대체고로 마도베게 신 드네베 차도 고라 짱짱 제대베 이미나 되게 드네 디스 가라 가버려스 베나 베네 차베 장간 드리지 사바이나 초람 토고래 차 장간 드리지 사바이나 졸람 토고래 차 장간 드리지 사바이나 통람 토고래 해야지 바지 영만스 장간 장간 사든 다지 로가 지돌 라디 가르슈에지 더스 가르슈다지 지 넘주르스네 장도 치 룽아가 차와서마인바 심기 차와서는 다도 심리야베 퇴삼 검송기 냠레 방지 제도 쪽네 진제가 토안에베 심카 제도 로가 제도 로면바다 담제 로 공내 공배도 야친 로가 제도 동고야를 마도 드네디 가수에다지 진제기 라마 마데 당와 마슈 테라 퇴삼 검송 냠레 가 마집세 더가스 남중 안아주지 가르에 지 최인 동도를 전에 더가스 요데버디 디스가라 하버를 차도 알았습니다.
So therefore, some people think that I don't need a teacher, I don't need the teachings, I just do my prostrations and my circumambulation and all those recitations, and then that will be okay, and that will be enough for me to practice Dharma. That's not right, because we need to understand, we need to have the instructions, we need to study them reflect on them, meditate on them, and then only, we improve. Our mind kind of improves and, and develop. We need to develop the capacities. It's nowhere mentioned anywhere in the text or any scriptures that if you do this many prostrations, you will attain the joining stage or the seeing stage or meditation stage, or by doing this many circumambulations you get enlightenment. There is nowhere mentioned like that. It's because this is just the outside thing, outer kind of appearance. The true thing is your own transformation of your mind. So that for that transformation you need really to have clarity, you need to find guidance, you need to study, and you need to reflect and understand, and then only you become, you know what is exactly Dharma practice and what exactly how to transform yourself. So this is something really, really important.
Alright. 다드네 다드리시네 양카시 랑즈라 틴데이나 땡 아주베 베나지 차 원루 사베 겁리야 아 드네베 참몸 이감몸 다 차다 냠도 짬도디 좀 몸주고 여러봐 짬롬몸 멘렘몸 다베 상모 몸도 상모 사잖아 몸가 담바 저거 여러봐 다 되게 됐다는데 이디 되니 왜 가서요 초 원도 초소 베림버로 유장바 규모 유장바로 저게 말베스 근데서 고 도바서로 다다게 망보지 데 말해서 라자라다 다양고 도바서로 봐 나데 가르잖아 다양디 대야 가르잖아 당부 아주 규모만 인병원으로 맞에 공래야 규모 공원으로 사죠 다 땡에 버도베 원도 들어가야 돼 쉽지 개 좀 사대요 규모 공원으로디 때 가르잖아 되네 당부 대조니가 되네 치워합니다 봐 대수 곰니 된이기 가르쳐 버렸잖아 천디베 낭시에 도네 천디 낭게 셴바 도네 치마 퇴니르게 로 쩌먹이 버지 귤게 주고 되니 뭐디 되네 렌데 루아 메바타 저 코레 동해에서 공발을 되네 되네 치매기 저 르미디아와 되느냐로 진재기 에네베 다 대 치매기 셴바대야 도네 다 타바 퇴니르게 로 쩌먹이 버 귤게 주고 하래 되네 유산 디준셀 되네 가르로에다 투몽의 원로시 원도 손에 토하네 되네 지 도시 티베게 라면 럽네 되네 가르쳐다 지 초사는 가르사디 잠도다한테 심게다 되는 가르사디 도심다 멘데다 디주 라고요아 마다 베게 된제기 베 투몽가 남장 봉원도 마송발이야 가르쳐지 투몽가 병원으로 신건도 마소마 투모메 병원으로 시담이 이미나 에네 바지 가르쳐지 셈리야 야게용아 깔라카보시라레 야게용아 깔라카보시라레스.
So then again some people ask that if it is like that, then why we should do all these many hundreds of thousands? We have to do 500,000 practices in Ngöndro, 100,000 prostrations, 100,000 refuge prayers at the same time, 100,000 Vajrasattva mantras, 100,000 mandala offering, 100,000 Guru Yoga. And so that why we have to do all these 100,000 things? Some people will ask this question. Now here, there are two levels of Ngöndro practice. The first is the general Ngöndro practice. The general Ngöndro practice is to turn our mind towards the Dharma. So the first two things, the precious human life, the reflections on the precious human life, and the reflections on the impermanence and uncertainty of death, these two things are to turn our mind from being too much attached to this life or to the positive things of this life. So when we have reflected on these good enough or long enough or well enough, then we know that to be too much attached to this life would be of no use or not necessary. And then the next two, the karma and effect, the causes and effects of karma, and the samsara. The reflections on these two are to get rid of our attachment and clinging to the next lives also, to the samsara. So that when we understand this clearly, we have a very clear understanding that unless we can transform ourselves from samsara, there is no true kind of attainment or no true peace or no true happiness in this samsara. So therefore, I have to be free from the samsaric state of mind. So these four things to turn our mind from samsara and from this life is very important, because unless that becomes very clear, that is something that we understand and we reflect and we have that way of attitude or understanding, then to do the other things like Vajrasattva, mandala offering, all these things, it will not really become too useful or too much of a true practice. So therefore, when we have that, then, we can practice Vajrayana and all these things, because these belong to the Vajrayana section of the practice. So the two, to have the basis of these four general preliminaries is extremely important.
Today in Hindustan, ngazu tumung be onru tumung mai be onru shi sabe kabliya sabe ina dayan de mise de chamro de chebina de tundal chamro de ne da be Hindustan tinde jigita chue chebe yin samne de garso yile be da kanda semliya kanda chue char ke mebche lega char ke mebche be ta thanga janga san derebina di rangsam du to man rangsam du sa de tunda de garasa sem du sa de mang bu jing do sem du sa de na garasa so su ge sem de nyemo be wang do song ma song be ta je chen da nyemo bo wang do song do na wang do song na song be ka lam sang temata immediately nyemo ba la ba nyembo te ne nyemo ba de 빵 지톱당 데네베 tor 지톱 베주샤 녀모베 가데 녀모베 와도 송 민도나 라스 녀모베 와도 마송베기 다 개와텔 이제 가서에 로 개와죠 로 개외 초를 내버텔 양내 양도 데 무투니 개와디 윤투니 게sem데 고네 콘도 뺄네 드디쳐 Tene Hindustan semla lega shuchiado wa semla. Jezang tindrigi be semla lega kaya majibche sem giwe choro sona ya song sem mi giwe choro sona ya song tela tato wadang tela semje tela simguru kanga majibche kabe jen nyun janga de yamana be ba garso de tingsan di xingjangboru di cha zhe ge xingda 샤 제주산 다 드네지라 두주니 망보지 좋아로 다 니마지라 다 참 죄인스 베나지기 제 참으로 대가치 다 참야고 쉬우충송스란데 마 되요로 다 참야보사디 제마 송마송사데 주 런규 녀모베 냠보 라베 거거지 송도 베 야저를 마송노 베 야저르지 장가르 제베 거거지 송도 베 야저 주주 다베 이제 담은 야자 주주 연답 송도나 어제 다 디멘슈얼 말레도나 야 엄마라 익셀 엄마라 디네 유산에 셈라 나다 민저베 지 똑바로 람지 똑바로 근데 쟤는 따오로 근데 마제베체 다 셈라 내가 짜는 매베체 류다 나데 지 시부지베 가로 루교 잡다 마제베체 셈라 내가 짜는 마제나 대대 죄냠을 저거 말아
So when people do the Ngöndro practice, and then maybe they go into retreat and things like that.
말에 뒤 된다를 가신 루도와 원도 써야 된다를
No. In order to do the Ngöndro practice, some people go into retreat and then they practice. But then the most important thing when they practice Ngöndro, they have to see whether their mind is transformed or not.
mind is working or not
Nah.
mind is working or not
Mind is working. Yes.
달려가 지금도
And because if you do things, because you are doing things with your body and speech, just doing that is not practice of Dharma. You have to watch your mind and see whether your mind is transformed or not. To see whether your mind is transformed or not means whether your mind is under the complete overpowering of the negative emotions or not. How much your mind is under the power of negative emotions or not, you have to understand, you have to see. So if you have, your mind is under the power of the negative emotions, then what kind of antidotes, what kind of methods you will use so that you can be free from that. And then if you are not under the influence or under the power of negative emotions, then how you can continue that, how you can continue that positive state of mind. And that's the real practice. That is the true kind of transforming your mind. And so therefore, if we do that, then we have lots of work to our mind, to see, to watch whether, where our mind is under the influence of negative emotions or not. If it is, then what can we do, what methods we can use, what antidotes we can apply, and things like that. And we actually do apply those antidotes and things like that. And then, so therefore, there is lots of work for our mind to do. It's not just, our body, doing this thing. We sometimes have a very smooth, plank, and on that we do prostration, shang, like that. And then, after we finish the certain number of counts, then we say, okay, now I finished my retreat and I come out. The retreat has been really good. But this is not the way to analyze. The true way to analyze is what you have done to your mind, how much you have transformed, how much you are free from negative emotions or things like that. And then you can give, whether it's a 60%, 70%, or even less, and things like that. So how much we are able to, be free from the overpowering influence of negative emotions or not, that's where, the practice is all about.
Tene yuzada kanda tene yuzan nenga di tanashebe nenga robdi kara chue che sa di mi shinda jig kara chue che na ya bo ya le sa ro an da na si chue che lu mi shinda ge ane ji ni de chi ye ba sa ye ba yin sa ngarang gi tin de che go sa sa ma ro ma do be ge su su gi ane be 가수에 소소랑기 남주에 자라 대체 니다 니데체나 야보도 니데체나 야보민도 체제 상행기 이와 체베 토네 에는 가수에데 가수에지 맞제바 된더지미나 최치로 야나고 말해지 최사 소수 제공으로마다 민신나 레모차 말어 봐 소수소수 지 가수에 디 nengarobuti tuksa tati sosugi nyomoba duya sem duya te tode sem duya de mishinagi lemuru cheje mis shindagi 가르다 제수 잡아서 lemuru cheje en di soldaru chebasam shigi chen di to marwa chen di san sosugi be 가르지 가르데 나 소수 닌 타고니 제비나 꼭 구조 잡지 소수 닌 타고는 왜 구조 잡지 아니 요와 땅도로 마도 민신다 레마치다가 디디디 요와 땅도 말해 수술이야 요와 땅도 말해 근데 요와 땅 버치able 닌 타고니 녜레베 닌 타고니 수술베 요와 땅도기베 로땅 아니 제라베 땅도기베 가르소지 삼바르 깨고로 하래 대깨 버치able야 내가 미신다 제단으로 제대나 근데 지단으로 차르고 마도베 디 소소리야 뉴바쳐 보지 튕고 말해 제상 개발도 소소수익 통하네 엔지 상행기베 당아 배가서 이와 체브체 나가다 제거하다 개좀 찍으래사 니버디 가르사나 셈사데 지단기 루기가 와요 나가 와요 심 지하요래 인베나 조데 최사데 조지 셈들 라레데 예빈스 삼무동단으로 될 라레데 예빈상 삼무동단 야보시고 와야돼 개좀 시다데 대지 야보를 충분히미나 아니 버시 가수에 신다데 지고 슈기 야보 연구를 삼바를 도스 정도스.
So therefore, the Dharma practice is not just aping somebody. They are doing like that, so I should do that. He's doing like that, so I should do that. It's not just following somebody's kind of how they are doing or tradition or system. It's not just that, because it's about ourselves. It's about transforming my own mind stream. So therefore, I have to do it. Nobody can do it for me. I have to understand what is the best way that I can transform myself. I can free my mind from the negative influences of the negative emotions and habitual tendencies. So therefore, I need to understand, I need to know how to do that and how to work on myself, and I need to work on myself with my own understanding and my own intention and my own kind of conviction, and I have to do it myself. So it's something that it's just not just following some rules or some traditions or some people's way of doing. It's about me, my mind, and my way of being. So therefore, this is the most important thing. The practice of Dhamma has to be, I have to do it, I have to understand it, I have to practice it, I have to have the clear understanding, what am I doing and how I'm doing and why I'm doing, and then I actually work on myself. This is the first thing. This is very, very important. And second important thing is, therefore, the Dhamma practice is not just outside kind of activities. It's not about body and speech. It's how I do things. It's not about that. It's about mind. So therefore, the most important thing is how I think, how I understand. So therefore, it is something that is to do my own mind and my own, attitude and my own way of seeing things. So therefore, my mind is the most important thing, because I have to transform my mind. I have to change my way of being, my way of thinking, my way of experiencing. So therefore, that's where the practice has to go.
Gyua tong sa de one 어레 다제베 제장 요아 땅사의 치기 도와바지 가수에 왜 류규 베데 안다면데 추 동박가바 차추 하는 가수에 다지 대지 바 둘러도 인제버스케 대체하고 정식이 또 유도 유로데 베딩 유만 수수캅 가수에 퍼스널리티 din yugu marwa susugi midin yuro chig marwa tulo yuna jim bene nga de sobe kempa maru tang sing jamru tang la su saru din jamru tang ina kon yuro chamada midi kurang une tne mi kurang yuro chamada siga din yuro ma che tene lu ju jam mi be nga ju jam mi be ta midin yuwa tong ba chebala gar jugur sana 미디 시가디 미디 삼바디 교이미나 드니 미디 민자 차노 우마다 민자와 미디 미신다 차노 드린 주산에 딜레 중지하래 우마지 하시 시에산 우마 bombo지하래 bom보 중중 콜레야 요보지 아 bom보디 니마지래야 고 멜론 따고 있으라레스 멜론 따고 있으라데산에 아니 요보디 멜론디 주케요레스 pombo도 pombo도 돈이 버지 저거 또 두산 코페 할리 네 돈이 버지 소리스 네 라레스 아니 제만 멜론도 죽게만 아즈라레스다 제만 멜론 당면 때 pom보도 다 다리 요보 다리 고갑 타서서 다 pom보 걔다 제 차지신 된데베 쭉 좋아라스 나네 다 니만 인간베 저랑 따고도 드레르 직시 세어레서 고둥고 설자래 제장 pom보디 삼바라 고 멜론데 바 유샤나 멜론데 마데나 단딩도에서 콜라 로데더바 뭐네 제나 고 가서 고 동보데 네 여러마도 지 멜론데 리어 말와 드네 인주산에 딱 깨르도 고아샤나 마도 시엔타 비스게야마 제가 디소르지 아주 삼례 나로리아 지 칠이 치 넘줄을 봐 망외나 따바지 딩딩이 삼바르지 미하마고나 남미 녜바이 마디 미하마고나 단딩다 소소 가이나이 삼바르지 제너로 메카시 삼례 나르지 미녜바이 마디 코라베 더러 맞제나 근데 가르쳐지 넘주르데 마대는 아주 뒤인지 다 넘주르 쇼도를 제르 칭년 바 쇼도를 지 다나시 지 가르쳐에 넘주르 쇼도를 지가르 다들 소소소 누구를 다네 오네지 아지 콘트 서르 답아 네네 지치고 봐 이내 미상보지는 그 콘트 근데베 소설 갈래 근데 연구 말했어 것도 알았어 거 가래나 고 semba lolo semba lolo desana ko sen was ke susen che was ke mido ko lolo de de na awodo wa shemato susu maji mingen ba yimbaji mi khoba na bo yimba ngaje chen bo yimba tene jine ta mile ji nam ju yang do khaba ten go chona kale yor tene indusane je da chang do khaba ten ti ta le yor ji cho mane ta dile che me yimba ta che si dusane bede ji semba khoran ju wa ta ne ko nam ju ru za me yimba semne juwatan mi khorang rangdi lüdin yama lü juwa mai ba nga juwa mai ba ta kan mi khorang rang ba juwatan ti mi sangbo ji da mi sawar chadi ji chege 가서 다 미위세나다도 지단으로 되래 딩 주와 동과 시부지 개침브레샤 딩 주와 마다체 땅아 낭바이 아지 최바이 슬랍데바디 오늘 아주 다다바도 양 고고르단도라 마음발이야 근데지게 민감버지기 되네 머시바도 고고 동사래 되네 젤라 삽사 섭서로 채고서
So when we talk about changing ourselves or transforming ourselves, I have a story about that. It's not about, making makeups and then kind of change ourselves or the way we look. We put on different dresses and things like that. That will change a little bit our appearance, but that will not really change our personality. And changing our speech also, we can maybe speak more kind of softly, or a little bit change our way of talking, but that would not really change our true self, our real personality. There was a story that there was a chief and his kind of servant, and then the chief once said, bring me a mirror. I want to look at myself, my face. So the servant brought the mirror, and then he looked at himself in the mirror. He was not a very handsome man, a rather ugly person. So he looked and he was very disappointed. He said, "What is this? Who is this? I don't want to see his face." He threw away his mirror and said, "Never bring that back again to me." And then the servant said, "It's very good. You have the chance only to see it once, but I have to look at it every day, whole day." So it's like that. So therefore, when we want to transform or change ourselves, it is the mind we have to transform. It's not, if we change our mind, if we transform our mind, then our personality will change. We become really a different kind of a person. It's not just outside things, because if you just change outside things, like if I'm, it's not just showing to the other people. Most of us think that if you don't show our negative things that's going on in our mind to others, then that's good enough. That's not good enough. That's not real practice of Dharma. I kind of pretend that to be nice or to be good, and then I don't show my inner negative emotions to others, and then I feel like to be patient, for instance. I'm angry, but I don't want to show it. I kind of control myself. I force myself not to show it outside. That's not really transforming myself. That's not truly practicing Dharma. Because if we really, learn how to transform from within, if we really work on our negative emotions, then we don't have to force. We don't have to, be kind of controlled, kind of a patient. We don't need to do that. When we just be ourselves, we relax, then there is no negative emotions coming from within. So therefore, there is no need to feel all those negativity. And when that kind of a thing happens, then the Dharma practice is easy. It's not something we have to force. We have to do something very hard. That is not. So therefore, this understanding, because when we really understand and when we really transform from within our mind, then the actions, the outer things will naturally happen. The transformation of outer body and speech naturally happens. So therefore, it's very, very important that the real Dharma practice is about that, to transform our mind, to learn how to understand, that we need to change our attitude, our way of thinking, our way of experiencing, and we try to do that so that, we naturally transform from within.